So we have a huge development update when it comes to Metroid Prime 4 Beyond and why the game isn't a real open world and why they went with the type of design that they did considering how long it was taking to make the game. We also have a big update on Nintendo Switch 2 sales as the system continues to stack on a pretty impressive December when it comes to Japan and does something I think it hasn't done in quite some time when it comes to the overall landscape of Japan that you guys are going to want to see and hear about. So let's go ahead and jump right into Metroid Prime 4 Beyond first. So apparently there was an unnamed developer in the most recent issue of Famitsu that talked about what players were wanting at the start of the development of Metroid Prime 4 and how things shifted as they were making the game, but they couldn't really go back and reboot development again, considering it was already rebooted development from scratch with Retro Studios, moving over from the supposed or more like rumored developer of Bandai Namco. So let's go and get into this Famitsu article and what this unnamed developer had to say. At the start of the project, perhaps due to the influence of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, we saw a lot of comments on the internet saying we want to play an open world Metroid. However, Metroid's core element of increasing the amount of explorable areas by unlocking powers is not very compatible with the freedom to go anywhere from the beginning of open worlds. Thus, we thought to design a limited area that could be freely explored and have that be a hub that could connect to other areas. Then we thought that if one could move around on the bike in a satisfying way in that area, it could be a segment that mitigates the tension from exploration and paces the whole game. In the end, the game took much longer than expected to finish, and we realized that players' impressions toward open world games had changed. That being said, development had already been reset once before when we started again from scratch with Retro Studios, so backtracking development again was out of the question, and we resolved to move forward with our original vision. During this time, shooting games and action games went through evolutions with an increase in game speed in particular, but taking in those changes would have made it difficult to construct the tempo of an adventure game, so we actively chose to not take them into account. Therefore, I think this game is pretty much divorced from the changing of times. So very interesting when it comes to what this unnamed developer had to say. We're not sure who it is, but obviously it would be an upper management of someone that has information or worked on with Retro Studios and with Nintendo. Now, if it was Tanabe, then maybe it would just say it was Tanabe overall because he's the person that's pretty much the liaison main guy between Retro Studios and Nintendo when they work on Metroid games. So I'm not sure if it's him or maybe it is. Nintendo just didn't want him to put his name out there. But either way, if we take this at 100% face value of what's going on here, there's a lot of truth in what was being said. I remember specifically back in 2016 and 2017, and even before then, even with the Wii U, people were asking for a bigger, more explorable world of Metroid. They wanted to actually go out and do Metroid Prime Samus bounty hunts. They wanted to be able to go to different planets and worlds and explore and do all these different things. That was something that was said quite a bit on the internet. So they are not lying with that. And I do think that over time, people's ideas and people's wants for games have changed. When Breath of the Wild came out, everybody was saying everything should be open world. Everybody was talking about how Breath of the Wild has this huge influence and how everything should be open world or like that, to where it should have open world elements or it should be like Breath of the Wild or have the physics like Breath of the Wild. There were so many different things that people were saying. Now, obviously, a lot of developers made a ton of open world games before Breath of the Wild and after Breath of the Wild, but you can see a lot of the influences of Breath of the Wild in a lot of different games, and people kind of got tired of that a little bit. So there's also a lot of truth in terms of players' own opinions kind of shifting on everything kind of going open world or open-ended. And I do also agree with the setup in terms of what they wanted to do. You have these different areas and locations, a smaller hub world with a few different things to do that breaks the tension, and it can kind of relax and drive around and smash green crystals and explore a little bit. I think the problem with Metroid Prime 4 and why I dinged it just a bit when it comes to some of the gameplay elements was that there wasn't enough to do in that small hub world. I don't have a problem with a hub world, but it should have been a bit more intricately designed. It should have been a bit more visually compelling, and it should have had a bit more fun things to do in there. There's some good ideas. There's some little small puzzles and stuff out there that are actually fun to do once you get certain power-ups, going back to those areas and getting a new supercharged ice shot or something like that. I think that's a great idea. I think the problem though was actually what happened in that open hub area. It wasn't really much, and the whole green crystals, smashing them and having to get a lot of them, that was also an issue as well for many people. Now, I collected a lot of them beforehand, and as I went through areas just kind of messing around and having fun, but not everyone's gonna play like that. So I do think that the execution was the issue when it comes to that. But I do think that their thinking was actually correct. And this actually leads to a huge thing for Metroid Prime 5, because I do believe that they're going to make another one. This time, they can create a game from an original vision of what players are thinking about and taking a lot of the feedback and creating something that's going to be incredible next time. I don't think the whole hub world with multiple locations or areas is necessarily a bad idea. It can be implemented again, but what you need to do is, one, make more Metroid style areas to explore that can be interconnected, even maybe without the hub world. Then of course, if you want some extra side stuff overall, you can go through some of the hub world. Obviously design that hub world better than what you did before. And of course, don't force the green crystals or monotonous type of missions to where you've got to do stuff like that. Now, I do think that, once again, cool ideas here and there, a few different things. You can get another 10 out of 10 experience from Metroid. Now, I really liked Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, but I do recognize some of the issues that people had, and even I had as well when it comes to my own review of the game. But I felt that the gameplay, the controls, the power-ups, the boss battles, and obviously the presentation, music, and graphics were incredible overall. Some really high highs in the game. So that gets me excited for what they can do for Metroid Prime 5 and what we can see from them, because I do believe that they really can take some of the feedback and take what they've done, and they've already built up this really good looking engine and good looking game, and they can really apply those and make a true sequel that follows up and fixes so many of the issues. And like I said, get a much better Metacritic score. Right now they're at 79. I think they can jump that up by 10 points or so if they take the feedback back from what people are saying and create more locations to explore, more different power-ups, more boss battles, better replay value when it comes to New Game Plus. I think that needs to be better. More modes, of course, as well. And I think that you got yourself a very compelling and good Metroid Prime 5 for more people out there. And of course, you have that incredible presentation and graphical effects and engine, and the Switch 2. You can make it specifically for Switch 2 and focus all your development time and resources on that platform. I wouldn't be surprised if Metroid Prime 4 Beyond comes more sooner than later, if they're not already drafting up things and working on what's next for Samus Aran. So we'll see what's happening after that. But what do you guys think about what Nintendo apparently had to say here in the Famitsu? Let me know in the comment section below. But before we get to the next topic, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos as soon as they drop. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into the next topic here, and we're going to discuss Famitsu and the sales, because this is something that I'm seeing quite a bit. I've had people reach out to me on my live streams and tell me that I'm ignoring or that I'm not talking about apparently terrible sales for the Nintendo Switch 2. And I'm thinking to myself, where is this coming from? Apparently it came from the MPD for here in the US, and how sales were really low a 30-year low when it comes to all platforms overall, kind of down year on year from what we saw before as well. And I'm looking at that like, oh, okay, that's interesting, because I look at worldwide sales overall. Obviously, regional sales are important. US is the biggest market in the world, and that's absolutely something. But there's also Japan, there's also Europe, there's also different parts of Asia, there's also all over places. And I like to cover the things that actually give us numbers until Nintendo officially announces what's going on, and then we can kind of evaluate from there. We've got an update from Paul Gale as well. He talked about things, and he was right multiple times on Nintendo Switch 2 sales. So for example, he was right before the Switch 2 launched. He said 3 million plus. Nintendo announced 3.5 million in the first few days. He was also right on 10 million plus units before Nintendo announced that, and Nintendo did announce the 10.36 or over 10 million units. So I'm pretty sure he's going to be right about what we're going to discuss here. But first, let's get into the Famitsu sales charts, because Nintendo Switch 2 had its biggest sales week since the launch of the system, where it sold really well. Switch 2 moved an additional 221,033 units, which is really good when it comes to a week. Now, to give you guys a little bit of a perspective, apparently based on the estimated sales in the UK, the PlayStation 5, which had a huge discount and sold the most in the UK, that sold for the month of November around 225,000 units, according to Pierre over on Twitter. The Nintendo Switch 2 in Japan, just for the past week, sold 221,000 units. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of the discrepancy from some areas to not, especially where Nintendo's super strong, which is Japan. So with the Nintendo Switch 2, 221,033 units, the Nintendo Switch 1 actually moved an additional 38,184 units. The PlayStation 5 moved 19,307 units, and the Xbox Series family of systems sold 184 units, with the PS4 selling a mighty 12 units overall. Now, another crazy thing here that I haven't seen in quite some time, it's happened before, but I haven't seen in quite some time, is that the Nintendo Switch 1 and 2 grabbed all 30 spots in Japan. That just goes to show you how much domination Nintendo does have in that region specifically. The Nintendo Switch 1 and 2 pretty much top all the charts here. I think it's around 10 Nintendo Switch 2 games in the top 30 and 20 Nintendo Switch 1 games, but of course some of these games are also upgradable as well, and people are playing them on their Nintendo Switch 2 systems with other things like Splatoon 3, for example. You can get a 4K update on the Nintendo Switch 2 for that one. So I do think that, once again, it's a worldwide type of situation overall. Switch 2, I think, is selling pretty good when you average out every single area, and we'll get those sales numbers in February. We'll get those sales numbers then, and then we can kind of discuss how good or bad or kind of what's going on there as well. Because I remember there were a number of people that were telling me it's not doing well before Nintendo announced 10 million units as well. So I do think that I'm kind of looking at what we actually get when it comes to numbers here, and I kind of cover that. Doing pretty good here, 221,000 plus units. Now, if you look at the month of November so far, Paul Gale actually rounded this up, so we're going to talk a bit more about that. So on Twitter, he said December 1st through the 21st, sales in Japan, Nintendo Switch 2, 615,375 units, Nintendo Switch 1, 120,844 units, and the PlayStation 5, 63,459 units. 1.5 weeks to go. Should the trend continue, Switch 2 should end up with around 820,000 sales in Japan alone for the month of December. Signs point to an upward of 3.62 million global total December for Switch 2, which, if happens, means that by December 31st, Nintendo Switch 2 will be at 17.67 million worldwide. Aside from the raw numbers in Japan through 12/21, this is not a fact drop post, rather than a possible on the more positive side outcome. From the beginning, I gave my range of 16 to 17.5 million being the total by the end of the year. If the above projections are accurate, then that would top my former best case scenarios. So I think Paul's kind of just discussing a lot of the different things, going over some of the new estimates that he's had internally, which he got right before with the Switch 2 two separate times, and then he's adding in the factual sales numbers that we have here from Japan. So far it's doing pretty good overall, and that's before we actually get a lot of the real heavy hitters that are going to be coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 for next year. I personally feel, and I think that this happens with any system, in order to truly get incredible sales for a long term, you're going to have to beat it's going to be a whole generation thing. So you're going to see stuff throughout the whole gen. It's not just from 1 month to another month or 1 year to another year. It's going to be a long list of games over multiple years that truly tells the fate of a system if it does great or not just looking at 1 month or 1 week or anything. It's kind of tolling up everything overall. And I think that with the Nintendo Switch 1, one of the great things about that system is that it launched with a 3D Mario in the first calendar year. It also had a big Legend of Zelda in the first calendar year. There was a lot of people that were skeptical about Nintendo and what they could do. So having that was paramount overall. With the Nintendo Switch 2, they already have all of those people that got the Nintendo Switch 1 and 100+ million people that are still playing their Nintendo Switch 1 systems. It was really more about showing the vision of what people wanted, which was a way more powerful Nintendo Switch 1, and they got that with Switch 2. And then of course having a consistent lineup of great games till some of the other titles are going to be ready. Because if you remember, in 2017, that was a great year overall, but in 2018, there was a lot less. I think that with the Nintendo Switch 2, they're going to reveal the new Gen 10 Pokemon game early in 2026, and I think they're also going to have a big brand new 3D Mario game as well to supplement it. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw an October, November back-to-back hit with 3D Mario in October and then new Gen 10 Pokemon in November to kind of get back to the traditional sense of when Pokemon usually launches, with that 2-version style of Pokemon game, turn-based combat, but also tweaks coming up apparently when it comes to the leaked documents of what the Pokemon company is going to do for 2026. So I'm looking forward to that, and I think that there's still other massive games set to come out, like The Legend of Zelda. That's going to be big. That was one of the better sellers on the Nintendo Switch 1 between Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. In addition to Animal Crossing, you know that they're working on a new game there. Super Smash Brothers, there's definitely going to be that. Splatoon 4, we've got to see how Splatoon Raiders works out. So there's going to be a lot of stuff to help boost up sales and to keep things going. But once again, it's going to take a collection of games over a number of years when it comes down to it. And I think that Nintendo is going to supply that for the most part, along with actually getting better third-party support this time around, because we already have games like Final Fantasy VII Remake integrated, in addition to Resident Evil Requiem already set to come out for the platform, and more on board like Monster Hunter Stories 3, in addition to games that already launched on the system as well, like Street Fighter 6, Split Fiction, and more. So I'm guessing that third-party support is going to be significantly better for the Nintendo Switch 2, because it already is in the first number of months than Switch 1 got in like years for the platform. So I think things are going to work out just fine overall. But what do you guys think when it comes to these Japanese sales here and what's going to happen in 2026? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.